The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you for asking. It is not dooming season, much to the chagrin of many Suns fans. We are not going to doom on this episode. We're going to talk about positive things. But yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, I think whether or not fans are dooming right now, the media that were excited to jump on the trade, the Kevin Durant trade, really seized that opportunity after Kevin Durant went down. Lots of people going at the Suns' depth, which we'll talk about because there are issues with the Suns' depth. And, even some people just sort of making sweeping declarations on the trade itself after, less than 10 games.
We knew that was going to happen. And I guess
course.
the only thing I have to say about that is no matter how many people come out and make their sweeping declarations, as you put it, it's not going to change how I feel about Mikal Bridges. He is killing it in Brooklyn, and he deserves every ounce of love he gets. And, I understand the viewpoint of fans. Like, right now, I am bummed about the fact that for at least the next 2.5 to 3 weeks, I can't watch Kevin Durant play, but I can flip on Nets games, and he's killing it. It does bum me out, but it doesn't change my views about the trade. It doesn't change my views about the reasons that led to us wanting to facilitate that. It's still a trade that you do 100 times out of 100. So, no declarations from me.
The trade was not made for the regular season. The trade was made for the playoffs, and the Suns fell short. Multiple playoffs in a row, including a trip to the finals. And exactly what they needed is what Kevin Durant can bring to this team. And, we haven't recorded since the initial injury. We did have a Patreon podcast, but we haven't recorded on this feed. Since the injury, just an absolute freak injury by Kevin Durant, just really unfortunate for him, for the team, and for the fans that were there at the arena. I feel really bad, especially for them. And 2 to 3 weeks was the initial tweet. There's been some level of conflicting information from Shams Charania, from Woj, from Greg Moore, from anyone out there who tried to latch onto it. Yeah.
We covered that on the Patreon pod. We don't need to eviscerate Greg Moore again on the main
we'll save
feed.
That
but
for the,
But we'll save it for another time maybe. But just know that yes, we were disappointed.
I'm sure he'll say something dumb again.
He already has. We were disappointed in the coverage of the initial injury for sure. It was disappointing in so many ways, honestly.
And look, I actually think there is an interesting conversation to be had about the Suns' depth and what is happening. And actually, let's do that in just a minute because I do want to just actually mention just Devin Booker first before that because he's just been playing so well that it's just something that we need to talk about at this point. In the last 5 games for the Suns, Devin Booker, overall the entire NBA, in the last 5 games, Devin Booker is second in points per game over that stretch with 36 points per game. Along with 7 assists. And I think it's an interesting thing to watch what's been happening with the Suns offense post Kevin Durant trade. Because it's sort of, you and I have had conversations about what we call the heliocentric offense for teams in the NBA. And often those offenses come because of a lack of other types of offensive talent, different players who could attack. And right now, the Suns are sort of set up in a way that the Suns kind of have to play like that. Now, they still, of course, have Chris Paul, and they still, of course, have DeAndre, and we know the current state of what Chris Paul is. Some nights he can do it really well. Some nights he's not quite as good. Always it can give you up to 10 assists every single game, but you can't really rely on him to run the show for 20 minutes a night anymore. So what I found interesting about this stretch for Devin Booker, the increase in points is interesting, but the combination of the increase in points and increase of assists coming at this point of the season, I think just shows that, without Mikal Bridges, without Cameron Johnson, And even, players like Payne, who's not playing very well at this point, and Chris Paul playing as he is playing so far this season, it's just all kind of converged to a point where we're seeing Devin Booker probably bear the most responsibility that we've seen him bear in the Chris Paul era for the Suns so far, and he's doing really well with it.
That's an interesting way to put it. The most responsibility in the Chris Paul era.
And now this all changes, of course, when Kevin Durant plays, but really it hasn't yet, because Kevin Durant, even when he did play, wasn't able to play the minutes outside of one game that you would expect him to play going forward. So Devin Booker, and even in that game, which was the Dallas game, Devin Booker still kind of outscored him. I thought Booker's points would go down at first with Kevin Durant joining, and that's just not happened.
So did everyone. I mean, after the trade, what is it? KD's averaging 29 point something points per game, like just a hair under 30.
Yes,
Booker,
or on the season, yes.
On the season, yeah, not with the Suns, but Booker's like at around 27. So, I think everyone thought KD would come in, and just efficiency-wise, Booker has been next level for the past week, but KD is still just a hair better from every spot on the floor. So yeah, for obvious reasons, I think everyone thought KD would come in and lead. But it has been interesting. I mean, particularly just in the last game without KD, we're seeing just how much everything needs to go right for the Suns to be able to win.
Against good teams.
Good teams. Yeah. They can definitely still sleepwalk their way to wins. Like, for instance, they have one game. But I should say, we're getting all mixed up here. We're like, what are we, 5 minutes into the pod or something at this point? You may have noticed, apologies for the awkward scheduling this week. We are recording this directly before the Golden State game, so you're probably, the vast majority of you are listening after the Golden State game. We don't know what happened in that game. Hopefully they win. If you're a patron, we will record probably on Wednesday after the Golden State and Milwaukee doubleheader, and we'll cover everything that happened in those two games. But just caveat there that we don't know what happened in that game. Mm-hmm. Maybe Booker goes off for 80 points tonight. That would be great. But
right.
Just
if something crazy happens, we'll figure out how to cover it later. Yeah.
But just in general, it's like he's handling the ball a little bit more. It's not heliocentric though, is it? Like I think that's like a fine-tuned detail, like a little contrast that we can make. It's still not heliocentric basketball. It's not. This is not. And what the Suns will look like for the next few weeks. Booker could average 35 points per game. He could average 40 points per game. It's not Luka Doncic ball. Mm-hmm. Because Chris Paul is still there. We should maybe have a extended discussion about him at some point, because he's still frustrating me in some ways. I also think he's been quite good in many ways, but he's also frustrating, particularly in the fourth quarter of that Sacramento Kings game, where I felt that he had a lot of opportunities to attack closeouts and look for his own shot. And despite the fact that he had 16 assists in that game, which was great, we needed him to embrace being more of a scorer, and he didn't. But he is still handling the ball. He is still facilitating the offense. We also continue to see Josh Okogie bring the ball up the floor. Now, is Josh Okogie averaging 5 or 6 assists per game out of that like playmaking position? No, that's just kind of a quirky way that the Suns can more easily get into their sets.
Or push the pace occasionally.
Right, but there's enough versatility even in this like weird assemblage of role players that the Suns are currently playing with, that Booker's shot attempts are up as they need to be, but it's not exactly heliocentrism, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. I just think the difference between pounding the ball the majority of a possession and then one pass to a shooter or just taking a shot at the end is different. The Suns are still attempting to run their offense. I just think the responsibility to shoot at the end of it has fallen on Devin Booker more often than not. I also think there is an element of the Suns offense where, and we've talked about it for years, the Suns winning the most games in the NBA last season, but Booker not having, the stats that a team that is winning less games would have. There's an element of the Suns offense that is sacrificial, where Devin Booker sort of does run things off the ball just to get other guys open, is a decoy in plays, is just going to get double teamed and have to move the ball so he's not able to take all the shots. And, the Suns try to rely on other players to take those shots regardless of who they are, which can be frustrating for some people at times. But what I thought was interesting about the addition of Kevin Durant is that responsibility to remain the sacrifice, if you will, on a lot of these plays kind of shifted over to Kevin Durant which allowed
Sure.
Devin Booker to be a little bit more free. Now, of course, in the games without Kevin Durant, it's still going to be Devin Booker, but finding ways to still be effective within that is important. But I think you made a good point. It's not necessarily just heliocentrism in that he is taking more shots in the last 5 games, 23 field goal attempts per game, but that's not that much more. That's just like 2 or 3 more than his average. I think a big change in it is 59% from the field, 50% from 3.
That's
and
awesome.
that,
yeah.
I think, is one of the main reasons that his overall point production went up, just because the sheer efficiency of what he's been doing in that time is, I think, has had a huge impact.
Another thing I think is interesting is, he's had an amazing stretch, but I think his free throws are not up. Correct me if I'm wrong in the past few games. So field
Matt
goal attempts
Ishbia
are
hasn't made the call yet, I guess.
Field goal attempts are up, but free throws are still at like 5 or 6 per game. I don't know, man. I went on a whole, I wouldn't call it a rant, but I did a little thread yesterday on Twitter about Mikal Bridges' second time he's come up in this episode already. So I guess he's frequently on our minds. He's getting a lot more calls now in Brooklyn, and just, I think there are a bunch of reasons for that.
It's suspicious.
Not necessarily all of them are Phoenix related, but I did talk about how it's suspicious. And I would hope that Booker, look, the general point there that I was making was not necessarily that refs target the Suns specifically, especially not in comparison to the Nets, who I don't think are this like big market juggernaut that, they're not the Lakers. But more so just that refs pigeonhole guys. They see a difference between a guy who they expect as being a 4th or 5th option in an offense, or a guy who is go-to, and they make calls based on that. It's we've talked about the notion of superstar calls for years, and I hope Book can get some more superstar calls, let's just say, over this stretch, where it is going to be very clear to officials on a nightly basis who is carrying the Suns' offense, and who bears the brunt of the responsibility to take those shots, as you were saying.
Yeah. He's top 10 in scoring this season now. Is Devin Booker.
Insane still to me that we're at a point in the NBA. What's he at? 27 per game? 28 per game?
27.7 average.
27.7 only gets you top 10 in scoring.
There are 6 players averaging over 30 points per game this season so far. 6. It's just insane. I'm going to read them out. Joel Embiid, Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, SGA, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Jason Tatum are the 6 players averaging over 30 per game. It's one of those seasons where it's going to be interesting to look back on the overall stats and see if this is the beginning of a trend that goes forward, and this is just the new world that we live in, where the stats are sort of inflated for superstars, and not in like a fake way or anything, because I think these guys are all earning these shots. Or if it was an anomaly, if it was a blip, or even if they make some changes because of, I don't even know what they could attribute it to as far as rules go, but maybe they make some sort of changes.
I don't think it's going away. They'd have to nerf a bunch of stuff. Maybe they do make changes, but I don't think it's going away unless they make those changes. As an aside, I just looked up. The first season I started following the NBA, because I was pretty young, was the 2004-05 season when the Suns won 62 games. Was that also around the time? That was around the time when you started, right? Like for real?
Yeah.
To be a Suns fan?
I mean, I've been watching
Probably
the NBA since I was a kid, but the Suns in particular, following every game, was around 04-05 exactly.
Around 04-05. So the Nash era was really when I was old enough to finally embrace being an NBA fan and follow along throughout a season and kind of I'm not going to say I knew what I was talking about at like 8 years old or whatever I was, but like, kind of understood things. So 2004-2005, Allen Iverson led the league with 30.7 points per game. Kobe Bryant was second, 27.6.
Mm-hmm.
When I started following the NBA, Devin Booker's current scoring total would have been second. And obviously you can't, compare, it's apples and oranges a little bit because of pace and all that stuff. But Devin Booker's 27.7 average this year barely scratches the top 10. When I started following the league, that would have been second. That is just insane to me. And it's also insane to think about that Amari averaged 26 that season. He was 5th in the NBA.
Even the jump just from 10 to 9 for Devin Booker, I think, is out of reach at this point, because 9th in points per game is Kevin Durant, who's averaging 29.5 this season. Booker could hold on to that 10th spot and remain top 10 in points per game if he continues to play well throughout the season. Really just has to beat out Donovan Mitchell, who's just below him. But I don't think he could even make that jump. The scoring is crazy this season of those top 9 guys, and of course Devin Booker right there with them. And tonight, we're gonna miss it. We're not gonna miss it. We're gonna watch it, but it won't be part of this podcast. It'll be interesting to see how he plays on a big stage against the Golden State Warriors, and then of course the Bucks at a back-to-back. Brutal
back-to-back, no doubt.
The schedule in general, as far as strength of schedule remaining, the Suns are 4th. Have the 4th hardest schedule remaining.
I did not realize that
of any team in the league, according to Tankathon, which is where I found this. Now the hardest opponents are the Bucks and the Warriors are 2 of those. So those are just in this quick stretch here. The Nuggets twice, the 76ers once, the Kings again, and the Clippers again. They still do play 1 game against the Spurs, 1 game against the Magic, 2 against the OKC Thunder, that weird stretch of the season where they play the Thunder 4 times in 2 months for some reason. And then they have a Jazz game and 2 Lakers games, which, at one point would be considered easy. But the Lakers are going to be fighting for their playoff lives, and those are going to be incredibly important games for the Lakers. Now, that brings us to the question of depth, I think. Because, look, I think the conversation around depth, I think, is an interesting conversation because the Suns, are the Suns as deep as they were pre-KD trade? No, they're definitely not as deep as they were pre-KD trade. But really, it's just like 2 for 1, right? Because Jay Crowder wasn't on the team.
Yeah.
And now they have Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant's not playing right now, so the issue with depth is obviously a lot worse without him playing.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I would continue to argue because I said, and I feel the need to defend the point, after the trade happened, I think the Suns are exactly as deep as they were before the trade because it was a 2-for-2 trade. If we're not including, 2 guys who are playing this season in Cam Johnson, Mikal Bridges. Obviously, you can include Jay Crowder as well, but for all intents and purposes, he wasn't playing, so I'm not really
Cam Johnson barely played too.
That's a fair point. Yeah. So depth is hurting, and we're going to see it right now for a couple of reasons. That the big reason because KD is out, and the second reason because a few of these guys that I think we can focus on are struggling with health or have lost confidence. And stemming from that, I don't know exactly where you want to start, but I think there's actually I know where I want to start. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So let's talk about Cameron Payne.
Okay.
Cameron Payne missed 21 games this season, foot sprain. That I think is an underrated. I think I underestimated how difficult it is to come back from a foot sprain, specifically for a player who excels in the way that Cameron Payne excels. And I'm willing to admit that now. I think that was on me. I had a lot of stock in Cam Payne. I think you could even say that I still have stock in Cam Payne, but I think I am selling some of it. And this may be a particular point where you had me beat. Since Payne returned from the injury, and I think it's been 7 or 8 games now, he is averaging 6.6 points, 2.7 assists to 2.1 turnovers. He is shooting 40% from the field, 28% from deep. I think I said this on the Patreon feed last week, but I don't think you can identify any single game that Cameron Payne has played since his return from injury, which again, few weeks now. I don't think he's had a single clear-cut good game in there. Yeah. I think there have been some games that have been less disastrous than others, but the average result has been bad. And that's tough because, yes,
he was playing well before the injury.
He was playing really well. I mean, he had a fantastic stretch as a starter at the beginning of the season that I was super happy to see him in. And I don't think it's a stretch now to say that in his 3.5 seasons, if you include the little bubble run, that Cam Payne has been a member of the Suns, this is the worst basketball I think he's played. With the exception maybe of the Mavericks series where he played himself out of the rotation, right? We're back to that level of bad. Yes, the rotation goes down to 7 or 8 guys in the playoffs, but I think ideally we were hoping that Cam Payne would be one of those 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah.
You need a backup point guard.
I think we just wrote him in ink, right? We didn't even pencil him in when we talked about that previously. He was just one of the guys that we said he's definitely going to play.
Well, because you think about the way that the offense functions right now, too, and Booker has been so good, but it's like, okay, Mikal and Cam aren't there to take those shots anymore while KD's out. So where else are you going to get offense from? You hope for some Ayton mismatches, maybe, some pick and roll work. You hope for some Chris Paul stuff. Terrence Ross has actually been really good in the past 2 games. But the guy who we just haven't seen this entire time, where it would just be great to have the constant downstream presence of Cameron Payne, the penetration. And we just have not seen it at all. Not even a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the talk about the Suns' depth would be framed a lot differently if Cameron Payne were just playing well. It changes the outlook of what the bench is so dramatically to have somebody that can handle the ball. And I think that's where I think the conversation about the depth has sort of... It needs to be a little bit more nuanced. And what I mean by that is there is players that are good depth pieces when you have Kevin Durant. And that means that their role is so specific and so, set to what they need them to be when Kevin Durant plays. And then if you take Kevin Durant out of the picture, yeah, I think it makes sense that those players struggle to do the things that they need to do because now they're trying to sort of approximate what Kevin Durant does. And they're not going to be able to do that. The depth makes a lot more sense when Kevin Durant plays than when he doesn't, I guess is the main point there. And yeah, Cameron Payne, I think he's such a tone setter for the bench. And when he doesn't play well, I think it impacts him. It impacts the team pretty dramatically. And this is all to say that, and I think you agree with me, and forgive me if I'm speaking for you incorrectly here, but he's still kind of not been great coming back from that injury. And I think you could sort of come to the conclusion that it's related to that, right? And he's still finding his way back into shape, back into rhythm, and figuring out how to play better. But I think the importance of him figuring that out now in these next 7 or 8 games or however many that we're going to have, we don't really know, before Kevin Durant is back. I mean, this would be the ideal time to do it.
Yeah,
I think for him.
Again, just think about the way in which when Cam is at his best, how he beats you. He is kind of a typical 6-man guard in many ways. He beats you with his speed. That's what he's always done. Even as a finisher, Cam likes to get to the rim, but he's actually not, even at his best, he's not a great finisher. He typically only finishes with one hand. He doesn't embrace contact. He's not a guy who gets to the free throw line a lot. Traditionally, the way that he's been able to get away with all that is he's so damn fast that if he beats you with the first step, it doesn't matter if he's a great finisher or not. It's going to be an open, largely uncontested layup a lot of the time. And that's how he's able to get those underhand lefty scoops, which has kind of like become his go-to move. All that kind of starts to go away, potentially coming back from a foot sprain, and suddenly the speed on your first step isn't there anymore. And so is that going to return between now and the playoffs? I certainly hope so. But yeah, it's again, I just underestimated how difficult it would be for him to come back from this. The other thing, though, I wouldn't think that a foot sprain would affect the 3-point shooting necessarily. Assuming he has a normal amount of time to recover. So, like I said, only 28% from deep since his return. I think we would also be talking about him a little bit differently. He's had stretches this year and in years previous where he'll shoot 40% from deep over like 10 game stretches or whatever. And I do think we would be talking about him differently if at the very least he was taking 3 or 4 catch and shoot threes a game and making those, because that is always a surefire way to make him playable next to Devin Booker in multi-guard lineups, even when his finishing is off. Unfortunately, it's just been a kind of worst-case scenario for him where the finishing is not there right now, and he's struggling with his 3-point shot as well.
Well, and I think the other part, too, is you mentioned the assists to the turnovers, and that's something he's always been really great in, is assist-to-turnover ratio. And look, I do think that when Durant was playing, that him finding what his role is going to be within that, because Durant was playing a lot with him in the bench lineups, finding what that's going to be and what his role is going to be different, because you just kind of need Kevin Durant to handle the ball when he's in because he's so good at it. So I understand the idea of the assists going down, but the turnovers going up at the same time is not ideal. He's got to find a way to be effective with both of those things. Now, having said that, there have been 15 players who have played since Kevin Durant was traded to the Suns. 15 players, which is everyone on the team. So far, 5 players in that time are in the negative in plus-minus over that stretch since Kevin Durant was traded to the team. So it's a quiz for you. Do you want to guess who those 5 players are who are in the negative? The Suns, by the way, have won the majority of games since that trade. Do you want to guess who those 5 players are?
Is Cam one of them?
He is not, and that was the clue that I was going to give you. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So 5 players. I'm going to guess. Baisley definitely in the negative.
Baisley is minus 15 in 17 minutes played since he's joined the Suns.
Yeah, that's tough. I don't want to get the Baisley hive after me. But,
the order in which that you guess these is going to say a lot about how you feel about players in the team, I think. I didn't mean to set you up like that. Sorry.
No, that's okay. TJ?
Correct.
Okay, TJ. Geez, after that, it's actually I feel like it's not necessarily how I feel. Terrence Ross? Is he
correct?
There?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like those three were the most telling and probably the easiest to guess.
Torrey Craig?
No, the other two I'm just going to tell you because they're such low minute getters here because there's out of all 15 players, Saban Lee and Bismack Biyombo.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bismack Biyombo's played like 10 minutes in that stretch, so unfair to him to even put him on this list, but I think the other three is the three players that I wanted to have a conversation about.
Can I say one more point on campaign before we wrap that up entirely?
Of course.
And I guess this you can apply this broadly for everyone before we get into these other guys. It's just last thing on campaign. He's so hard on himself, and we've seen shots of him like beating himself up on the bench before, and it's been reported by various guys who cover the team that this is just traditionally a guy who's very, very hard on himself. I just hope that there is real leadership in the way that the Suns approach this situation, that guys are talking to him in the locker room. And
Mikel's not there, and they were close.
I know, and I think this is a case, and I think he was close with Cam, too, for the record. So, positive encouragement here, positive reinforcement. I think that goes a long way with a guy like Cam. I don't know him personally, but he's maybe not the traditional Chris Paul method of leadership is not necessarily what campaign needs to be able to play at his best for the playoffs is all I'm saying. I'm sure Monty has a close relationship with him and they're working on that, but you really need to keep his confidence high if you can so that he can rebound from this. And I still believe he can, but with the right approach, that's all.
Yeah. Yep, I agree with that. We're in an interesting inflection point for the Suns. I brought up these three guys that I wanted to talk about, which are TJ Warren, Terrence Ross, and Darius Baisley. We don't have to have a long Darius Baisley conversation here because I just don't have any faith that he's going to be an important part of the Suns team going forward. If you think that he is, I respect your commitment to just believing in guys like that. But the other two guys,
he's the new Dwayne Washington Jr., which is not to say that we hated Dwayne Washington Jr. either, and we don't hate Darius Baisley.
But Dwayne Washington Jr. was mostly bad on the court as well.
Right. That's what I'm saying is people, especially this Suns team, this iteration of the Suns, where James Jones sells all our draft picks. People want to have hope in a project, and I don't blame them for that. It's just, personally, I don't think Darius Baisley is it. If you're looking for that,
I agree. But the other guys, I think my point about it being an interesting point for the Suns is that without Kevin Durant on the team, the Suns need offense right now because they're just struggling to find it. Now, one of these guys has shown good offensive outings for the Suns so far, and that's Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross has had some great games offensively where he's just hitting shots over and over and over again. TJ Warren has yet to do that, hasn't gotten a ton of minutes, but does not look good in the minutes that he's played offensively. And
you've made that point known.
Yeah,
one would argue in our playback streams, you've made it known when he checks into the game.
Both of them check into the game and immediately start fouling. And this is, I think, the interesting part for both of them is that in order for them to play when Kevin Durant is back, they have to play well defensively. Neither of them have at all. And both of them have been just bad, like really, really bad in some cases. Foul machines, losing their man, not guarding well in space, leaving shooters wide open. That was a Terrence Ross. Terrence Ross is either leaving a shooter wide open or fouling a star player going to the rim.
Or miscommunicating a switch,
Yeah. And, it's tough because I think we are at the point where in the way that you want them to earn their minutes when Kevin Durant is here, which is just fighting really hard defensively. They don't have to be great. They just have to know where they need to be and be there most of the time. We kind of need them to do other things now because you have to make up for those 29 points that are missing from Kevin Durant. And it's going to be a tough stretch without them. And I'm interested to see how Monty handles it. I'm not really sure what he's going to do.
I have a theory that I don't think people are going to want to hear, but he may just be biding his time. I think Terrence Ross is going to continue to play. TJ, it's been a tough situation. He hasn't played more than 13 minutes. He's made 6 appearances with the Suns out of a total of like 10 possible games or something since the trade. Hasn't played more than 13
fouls
minutes.
than points.
I'm no. Well, actually, maybe he does. Okay, he does.
I looked at that exact stat. He doesn't. It's close though.
He played just 4 minutes the other night against Sacramento. That's 4 minutes. KD is out, and you can only get 4 minutes. He played one stint at the start of the second quarter. Monty clearly did not like the defense he saw, and he pulled him. What I was going to say, though, the way that Monty might handle this is he bides his time until KD comes back. We still haven't heard any updates about this other guy, but he goes back to all reliable, which is Landry Shamet minutes.
And you could make the case that that's smart.
I don't. Look, I really don't know. I mean, look, we're seeing how what is Shamet's injury? Is that also a foot?
Yeah,
or is it an ankle?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point.
So we'll see. I mean, we're seeing how Cam is playing off of rehabbing that type of injury. So I don't know if Shamet will be ready either. But all reliable for Monty is fuck the rest of these guys. I'm playing Landry Shamet. Does Landry Shamet have a middle name to make it more dramatic? He'll play Landry Shamet.
I'll look it up
solid. I'm typing as I speak. A solid 15
Michael,
to 20 minutes in the playoffs. He'll play Landry
Michael Shamet.
Michael Shamet to the rescue. So yeah, I mean, if that doesn't make you feel great sitting at home, I get it. That's not ideal. But you know, it's just the starting 5 when healthy is going to be so damn good for this team in the playoffs, and we're going to continue to maybe struggle to identify. Yes, we know that ultimately we want an 8-man rotation, but who are those 3 guys? I think Jock Landale is one of those guys right now. Yeah. I think he's the center. Who are the other 2 guys? Pick out of a hat.
Hey, you mentioned earlier that we should maybe have an extended conversation about Chris Paul. And I'm curious what you were alluding to in that.
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it earlier. He just pissed me off. And again, I don't want to, because people are going to hear this after the Golden State game. Maybe plays really well tonight. He pissed me off in the Sacramento game. People were responding to me on Twitter after I kind of complained about it, saying, he took 9 threes in that game. But to me, it was like when the Suns needed points most in that game in the fourth quarter, and at a point in the game where their process became really important, Booker was handling the entire offensive load. Chris Paul was getting wide open threes or opportunities to attack closeouts, and he was just hesitating. And we just can't have that. He was approaching the game in the way that Chris Paul normally does, the way that he does this entire season, and the way that he will, and it'll be great in the playoffs with Kevin Durant. But right now, for these next 3 weeks, we just need him to have a slightly different role, and yeah, that's all it is. I think it's possible, I guess, in general. It's possible to take 13, 14, even 15 shots in a game. Like, the box score really doesn't tell you everything, and still have watched that player play 35 or 40 minutes and say, oh, they're passing up looks. They're not taking what the defense is giving them. They're being too passive. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, depending on the particular talent level of the player, but it's also possible for a player to take 6 shots in a game and say that player took dumb shots and was too trigger happy. And I think this was just an example of Chris being too passive. I don't care how many shots he had in that game. It's just, where are you going to get offense right now? It's Booker.
Yeah.
It's Ayton, and it's Terrence Ross.
Yeah,
that's your entire offense. So Chris needs to step up a little bit with his shooting. That's all.
I agree, and I want to mention something about a different player. But before I get to that, just to really hammer home the point of Chris Paul turning down shots, do you know what he's shooting on catch and shoot 3-point attempts so far this season?
Is he shooting like 40%?
50.7%.
That's crazy.
On catch and shoot 3-point attempts from Chris Paul so far this season. You can't turn him down, Chris. And he's getting more corner 3-point shots than he's ever gotten, which is still not many because he's never in the corner. But 50.7 on catch and shoot 3-point attempts makes that basically one of the best shots in the NBA. Now, he's only shooting 1.5 per game. Not enough. It's just not enough when Devin Booker's handling the ball as much as he is. But it's definitely not enough when both Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are in the game.
In that Kings game, I think he was 2 for 9, so he took a lot of them, mostly pull-ups, more so than catch and shoots. But I don't care.
He's shooting when they go under, which is a new thing for him.
As he should. I don't care if you're 0 for 5 or 0 for 6 either. You're Chris Paul. You're not Josh Okogie. Okay, Josh Okogie takes 8 threes in a night and he misses all of them. Bring in Ish Wainwright. Tell Josh, better luck next time. That's a role player. You're Chris Paul. You're a first ballot Hall of Famer. We just need him to take those shots. That's all.
Okay, let me just ask you one other question, tangentially related here. Are we just past asking more from DeAndre Ayton?
What do you want from him?
I mean, this is kind of the point I'm making, is that neither of us even thought to even ask for more at this point, right? I mean, it's not just a team without Kevin Durant, right? It's a team without Kevin Durant, Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson. You have to think about it that way. Now, in this stretch, when we need more offense, we're just past it, I guess, right? Because neither of us are saying he needs to do more, because I don't know if that really benefits the Suns necessarily. He can score more because the ball will find its way into his hands more, just because there's not other offensive options. But doing more, meaning, building the offense around him more, is just not something that we're asking for anymore. I think we're just past that now, right?
I think it remains to be seen what's going to happen, though. I mean, to your point, he had 22 points against Sacramento. They lost that game. That very much does not tell the whole story, but contrast that to the experience is all I'm saying between the previous few games before that when KD played. And we were talking about on our last episode how Ayton just had a stretch where he was taking only 5 or 6 shots per game. It was kind of the least involved he had been on offense in KD's first few games. Maybe ever?
I mean, I had a point where I was wondering who would average more for the rest of the season out of him or Josh Okogie.
Yeah,
Points.
I think that's fair. I think now we're not going to see that, because definitely over the next few weeks, I think Ayton should be averaging basically 20 and 10.
Yeah.
Does that necessarily make them a better basketball team? No, and it really depends on the matchup. But there you have it. I mean, look, at this point, efficiency doesn't matter for me so much. We talk about, run your offense and get him the proper looks. But we also, we just have to make peace with the fact that there are going to be a lot of Ayton mid-range jumpers in the offense for the next few weeks. And that's fine, because who else is going to take the shots? Would you rather have the Ayton mid-range jumpers or the Ish Wainwright contested threes?
Well, I hope both of those guys kill it against the Warriors, and both of us sound dumb having this conversation to most of the people who already watched that game.
Again, some people are dooming. I'm not there.
Me neither, yeah.
I'm really not there. This team is the 4th seed right now, and I don't give a damn about the strength of schedule. I heard all of the teams that you rattled off earlier, and I'm not going to say it sounds like light work. That's an exaggeration, but to me, it did not sound that scary, especially when you mentioned the Nuggets twice. Nuggets don't scare me.
Well, let's say, I mean, the Nuggets games, at least one of them should have Kevin Durant. But let me just read through the schedule real quick, and then we'll get to some questions that we got in Discord. Warriors, most of you know the end of that game. Bucks back-to-back, real tough back-to-back, probably the toughest part of the schedule here. And then we got Orlando, OKC, LA, Lakers, Sacramento, Philadelphia, Utah, and I think that's the extent of the games that we can guarantee Kevin Durant will miss. Then we have Minnesota, Denver, OKC, San Antonio, Denver, Lakers, Clippers. We end with back-to-backs against LA. Well, a day between them, but 2 LA teams at the end of the season. And I think, most of those teams are teams that are, and this is sort of the fact of the play-in, but most of those teams are playoff hopefuls at the very best, as well as playoff teams. I think you can say OKC, Orlando are basically the only ones, San Antonio,
and San Antonio
are basically the only ones that aren't. So it's a tough schedule. It's not completely easy, but not a lot of contenders in there. Philadelphia, Milwaukee, I think are really, and then Denver. Sorry to completely disrespect them there, and then maybe the Clippers at the end.
But that speaks to the entire point. This is the weirdest NBA season ever. It doesn't feel like there are a lot of good teams in there. there are a lot of good teams that could come in and kick the Suns' ass if they're not giving effort on the proper night, yada, yada. But how many contenders are there right now? The Nuggets are number one, but we're not afraid of them. The Grizzlies, Woj just announced that Ja is still without timetable for return because he just checked into counseling. They have all sorts of issues right now. So certainly, and the Kings are great. They're having a great season, and they rightfully beat us the other night. But they're not a team that, like, when I see the Kings on the schedule, I don't shiver down to my core at the thought of playing the Sacramento Kings. It's just not like that. So the teams that I actually think are just so great going into a game against them right now are probably the Bucks and the Celtics. Is like, I feel like, and even the Celtics have struggled a lot recently.
Bucks, the Celtics. The Knicks have been good.
The Knicks have been great. Particularly the Bucks are the team where, knowing that that's, even though it's at home, knowing that that's a back-to-back tomorrow, you just know that you have to fire on all cylinders or you don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Devin Booker.
Anyone else you got a chance against?
Yeah. I think it's fair to say.
So why Doom?
It's fair to say. Yeah. I think it's fair. Now, I asked on our Discord about some topics that people wanted us to get to on this podcast, being that I think we were just at a point of the season where the topics were a little bit light. Not a lot of news post-trade deadline, so and not a ton of basketball between our last episode and this one. So we asked on there. We got a few questions. I think the main conversation continues to be around the standings and where the Suns are. And we touched on that a little bit, and we'll see how we get to them here now. Somebody mentioned potential playoff matchups now without Kevin Durant. So this is basically a conversation about where the standings are. So let's talk about that, because and I think we'll just wrap both of these questions into one, because another one was who will make the play-in tournament, and I think these are both standing conversations. So let's get to both of those. Have you been keeping an eye on the standings?
Yeah.
Is this an everyday thing for you now?
I hate to admit it, but it is.
Yeah, me too. We're there now, right?
I was hoping I wouldn't be here, but honestly, I've been here for like 3 weeks. Just check the standings every day, because why not? Yeah. And every day a few teams flip around, and I should know better than to think that. But here we are, every day.
Yes. So right now it's Nuggets, Kings, Grizzlies. Now this could change. Obviously, it's going to change at a certain point. But the 4-5 matchup is right now Suns Clippers. If the Suns maintain the 4th seed here, that's what it would be, with the Suns having home court advantage in the first round. Now, they are 3.5 games out of the 3rd seed. Now, the Grizzlies continue to win. They're actually 6-4 in their last 10. The Suns are better, 7-3 in their last 10 in that same stretch. But I don't think it's guaranteed that the Grizzlies are just going to drop without Ja. They just seem to be playing okay. And, the Suns could catch them at a certain point. They also have one more game against the Kings where they could win the tiebreaker, meaning that all they have to do is tie with the Kings to pass them in the standings. But the Kings are tied with the Grizzlies with the same record at the point of the recording of this podcast. What do you think the most likely scenario is for the Suns? It seems like 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, 4. I think they can stay at 4. They still have a 2-game lead over the Clippers for now. Obviously, that's a crowded field. But I would say 4 is most likely. Truth be told, 5 probably feels more likely than 3, right?
Yeah.
Moving down a spot feels more likely than moving up a spot. Right now doesn't mean they can't move up a spot. They absolutely could. But we have 15 games left, 14 if you're listening after that Golden State game. And right now we're 3.5 back. So it's a little tough.
Well, I think that makes the most likely opponents for the Suns. There's like 4, right? That we could say are the most likely ones. That Clippers, Warriors, and I think the Warriors have a good chance of passing the Clippers relatively soon, which would mean that 4-5 matchup would sort of be the Warriors and the Suns as the season goes along. And then there's the Timberwolves and the Mavericks. The Timberwolves playing pretty well. I mean, they're 4-6 in their last 10, but they have moved up in the standings over the last, the aggregate of the last month or so, where they were in the play-in. Now they're not. It seems like, well, they are, but they could kind of get out of that range if they play well enough. And the Mavericks have kind of been sinking. Mavericks are 3-7 in their last 10, but they could kind of put together a stretch at the end of the season to climb. They're not completely out of it. The difference between the Clippers and the Mavericks is just a game and a half at this point. So like that big grouping is the most likely if the Suns end up in the 4 or 5?
Rank those 4 teams for me in terms of preference to play in the first round.
Well, I would say Timberwolves probably
1, no doubt.
Number 1,
Timberwolves
right?
are
Yeah.
1, sure.
Yeah, and they like I said, 4 and 6 in their last 10, but they've been a weird team without Cat for the majority of the stretch.
Also, Chris Paul guaranteed to beat Rudy Gobert in the playoffs.
Yeah,
that
true.
helps.
That's true. He's only lost a few games to him, and that's pretty lopsided. And then I would probably, I hate to say it because of just the existential dread.
I know exactly.
But the Dallas Mavericks, right?
The Dallas Mavericks are number 2. I'm in exactly the same boat, and I'm afraid of the bad juju of that matchup or whatever. But yeah, they're number 2. I'd rather play the Mavs than definitely the Warriors. The Warriors are more seasoned.
The Warriors are the team I'm
Clippers.
afraid of playing the most, I think.
I'm such a stereotype. I'm a toss-up between those last 2. The Clippers might be the team I least want to play, and they're currently the team that we would play.
See, for me, I feel like I would feel more like that if the Suns had Kevin Durant for the stretch. But the combination of the lack of chemistry with the Suns and the chemistry that the Warriors can kind of just pull out of their ass at this point
It's true.
is just a little bit more frightening to me. Whereas the Clippers have been better all season than the Warriors.
That's true. Both of these teams, I think it's important to note, are also have continued to struggle with availability of certain players. I think an interesting storyline right now is Andrew Wiggins, who's been out for around the last 10 games, I think, for the Warriors with personal reasons. And I don't know if you saw the report the other day. A reporter asked Steve Kerr the question of when he would be returning, and it sounds like they just, whatever he's going through must be relatively serious, because it doesn't sound like he's returning anytime soon. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. But also to your point, I mean, Andrew Wiggins was so critical to their championship run last year, but maybe they could just pull a second or third round run out of their ass without him, playing Dante DiVincenzo 35 minutes. It would be weird to me, but maybe they can do it. If any team can do it.
Yeah.
That's kind of one that you don't question a little bit.
Yeah, they've earned that respect. They're the team that's earned that respect.
I think we can agree. Any of these 4 series sound thoroughly toxic in the first round to me. Any of the 4 sound absolutely delicious. Should be fun.
Yeah, the biggest fan base by far is the Golden State Warriors. And
Golden State would be...
The smallest has to be the Clippers, right?
Yeah. Are we sure that they're smaller than Minnesota?
I think they might be, to be honest.
Yeah, they might be.
Yeah.
You know what's weird is I have beef with certain Clippers checkmark accounts, but to your point...
Farbod, yeah.
I wasn't going to name names.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
This is the main feed, dude. What are you doing?
It's not like he's universally loved and we're insulting someone.
Save the call-outs for the Patreon. Jesus Christ. I don't know of particular Clippers accounts that are like Kawhi season or I don't know well-known Clippers fans.
Like Shane Young's cool.
Shane's awesome.
They have some good media guys too.
Usually there's a couple of fans of most teams that I follow, not necessarily just checkmark accounts like beat reporter types, but just fans. And I don't know of, this is an annoying word.
Isn't Vince Staples the Clippers? Vince Staples a Clippers fan? Is that
Vince
Am
Staples?
I making that up?
You might be making that up. I'm not sure.
I'm going to look that up after this. The other side of that conversation, the other side of that question was who's going to make the play-in, and I think this is interesting because right now, 12 games back are the 12 games back from first place, meaning like a virtual tie. Same exact record right now as a point of this record are the Timberwolves and the Mavericks, and then 13 games back are the Jazz, the Thunder, the Lakers, and the Pelicans, with the Trailblazers just 2 games behind that. Trailblazers, by the way, 31 and 37 with this season that Damian Lillard is having. They're probably out, but it's just an absolute travesty what they've done to that man in his career. It's just, I cannot believe it because this is possibly his best season he's ever had, and the team is awful around them. And they have no assets to fix it.
To make a historical comparison, it feels very Tracy McGrady on the Orlando Magic-esque of here's a guy, here's a superstar, at the absolute prime of his career, breaking scoring records, whose team is just dog shit. And it's going to severely... I mean, on the one hand, you can't feel too much sympathy for Dame because this is the path he chose. But going forward, he can either stay there or he can do what McGrady did and try and find success elsewhere. It didn't work out too well for T-Mac, but it might significantly affect the way that we view Dame's legacy.
Damian Lillard is in an abusive relationship at this point.
But it's nice.
They are taking advantage of his loyalty.
He makes $50 million a year, and dude, it's nice to be, when you're concerned with raising a family, it's nice to be in one city for 15 years. Is the thing that so many people take for granted. So many of us regular Joes who do live in cities for 15 years at a time. The idea of not needing to move every year or two.
It's true.
It's a certain loyalty that Portland can afford Dame because he has that status with the organization. It's hard to rock the boat. It really is. But yes, if he's concerned with winning championships, he needs to request a trade. No doubt.
Are the Lakers going to make the play-in? They're just outside of it based on like tiebreakers right now.
They probably are, because of the four teams that you mentioned, they're the ones who are playing the best right now.
7-3, yeah.
It bothers me that they are, but they probably are. Yeah,
I think they are too. Well, who's going to drop out, you think? Because right now it's Wolves, Mavs, Jazz, Thunder.
I think, by the way,
Mavs are the worst out of this team as of late. The Mavs could drop out of the play-in. That's a possibility here.
No doubt. I'm going to go with Utah.
Yeah, it seems like it, right? But I don't know. It's weird to bet against them because, I mean, they would almost have to do it on purpose at this point. They just continue to play relatively well. So I don't know what's going to happen with them.
It's between them and OKC because I don't know if either of those teams really want to be there.
So does that mean that the Lakers and the Pelicans could potentially leapfrog those two teams is what you're saying? And
sure.
The play-in could be Timberwolves, Mavericks, Lakers, Pelicans. That would be interesting.
I would gladly, though, rather watch a 9-10 game between the Jazz and the Thunder and sleep very well knowing that the Lakers and Pelicans are sitting at home. But it's not a guarantee.
Yeah, that would be kind of fascinating to see. LeBron, I don't know when he's going to be back, has been injured. They've been playing relatively well without him. And look, he can come back and they can play even better. And that would be an interesting thing for a team like the Nuggets if they end up playing against them in the first round. Let's see. Any other thoughts on the standings as they currently are?
We didn't talk about the East, but I guess there's not too much to cover there.
Yeah, I don't think we're quite there yet. Let's see. Here's a question from the Discord. How much stock do you put into these games without KD after we've seen the team in the 3 games with him? The question is basically, do you feel confident about the team with Kevin Durant just from 3 games?
Yes. I still do.
Yeah.
I still do. I'm mostly just bummed that, we don't get to enjoy the pleasure of watching KD on a nightly basis. Yes, I would like to see them mesh and whatever, but frankly, I don't think they need that time. I think they need he needs a few games of a warm-up period before the playoffs. But he doesn't need. I don't think he needs 10 games before the playoffs.
Charlotte, Chicago, Dallas, right? Those are the 3 games. All 3 of those teams kind of defended the Suns a little bit differently. It was kind of like, as far as a scenario of the Suns coaching staff sort of collecting data and trying to make plans depending on how teams defend the Suns in the playoffs, it was not the worst situation as far as the 3 games that they played. Charlotte, you can kind of throw that out. Chicago kind of played the Suns relatively straight up, started trapping about halfway through that game, forcing the ball out of the hands of both Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. The Mavs had a really disciplined defensive scheme of just not guarding the 5th guy on the floor, and even extended it to the point of not even guarding Chris Paul, right? They were just kind of using 5 guys to guard DeAndre and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and daring the other 2 guys to shoot. And look, and the ideal scenario is the Suns get a ton of reps against different kinds of defense, but I do like that the Suns kind of had, the Mavs kind of played the Suns, I think, closest to how teams are probably going to play the Suns in the playoffs defensively. It was a good scenario for them to try to actually figure that out. I think, and
Yep.
and as far as the coaching staff goes, I think they're going to have pretty good plans. They implemented a play in the very next game that used Ish Wainwright as a screener, that kind of thing.
Their plan is all reliable. I'm telling you, Mike. I'm just saying, prepare yourself.
It's not the worst plan, man. I'm keep saying it.
I'm just trying to prepare.
Michael Shamit. It's not
Landry,
the worst plan.
Landry Michael Shamit is the plan. That's the plan. Because you have to guard his shot.
He fits the best, right?
I don't know, man.
He's in the corner, just standing there in the corner. He's going to shoot 38% from the corner and not be just completely terrible defensively. Still the pigeon, of course, but not a complete liability the way Terrence Ross is.
I'll say we've seen the screening recently from Josh Okogie. It's something we've talked about on the pod. The screening that you were mentioning from Ish Wainwright as well. I hope that those guys can find ways to just hit their shots and be a little bit of an off-ball presence and stay on the court. I hope it doesn't come to us having to scramble to find every single game who's going to be the fifth guy. It's going to be a different guy every game. I hope that's not the case.
Slightly related to, I think that Ish Wainwright should take most of Torrey Craig's minutes going forward. I look, if it's a question of who's going to play out of those two guys at the end of a game, they need to try something other than Torrey Craig. I'm sorry, I feel like I've harped on Torrey Craig all season. He doesn't work in starting lineups. He doesn't work against great teams. It's just he's too much of a wild card when it comes to making massive mistakes offensively or defensively. And I think Ish Wainwright has sort of earned enough trust to be that guy in some of those scenarios. Just getting minutes over Torrey Craig. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
I feel bad for Torrey. I feel like he's lost confidence too.
It's kind of working with him coming off the bench. You saw what he was supposed to be in a short stretch there where he's just an energy guy off the bench like he's meant to be. And yeah, he's been thrown into so much situations that is just not really what he's there for this season in a way that has impacted the Suns negatively. And I hope that, he's like, at this point, he's not all reliable, right? He's old.
Well, he kind of is in a way. He kind of is in a way, though, because he's been one of the only guys who's always available this season.
That's true. And
he's the new
beat
Iron
up
Man,
in every game.
if you will. Yeah.
All right. How many minutes a game do you think the Stars will play in the playoffs? Now, we've covered this briefly. Durant historically plays over 40, and so does Booker.
Yep.
Yeah. They're going to
Chris
play a lot
only
of minutes.
Plays like 34 to 36 in the playoffs, maybe, is what he did last year.
Yeah, the Pelican series, I think, was the outlier when it comes to that, but yeah.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Ideally, yeah, you squeeze 40 minutes out of all of that. Okay, also, I'll just tell you right now, DA, I think they're working to get his conditioning up. He's not going to play 40 minutes.
Yeah, they're playing him a lot.
He's not going to play 40 minutes in the playoffs because either he runs out of gas first or he gets into foul trouble. It's just not going to happen. So one of Jock or Biz will be playing, probably Jock if we're being honest, will be playing like 12 minutes per game unless they go to small ball 5 lineups. That's just
and I think they will end up going to small ball 5 lineups as well. So we'll see how those minutes are distributed. But I do think there is a scenario where Devin Booker and Kevin Durant do play a lot of minutes together, but Devin Booker sort of resting on the court is a lot more likely with Kevin Durant than it was before, in that he can stand 35 feet away and just spread the floor on one play, and then the next play Kevin Durant could do it, where they're not exerting as much effort offensively as they were previously because of the existence of the other superstar that's on the floor with them. So, they'll play a lot of minutes, I think, is the main thing, because this team, it just doesn't have the depth as far as what they do, offensively that they did previously. So they kind of need to.
Josh Okogie as well. If he's hitting his shots, he could play 40 minutes. He might play
45 minutes, yeah.
He could have
Monty's just going to leave him in the whole game.
Yeah, because he will match minutes, or Monty will do his best to match Okogie's minutes with star players on the perimeter on the opposite team who will be playing 40-plus minutes.
Last thing, you got any March Madness thoughts?
No.
This is our...
I am
not
so I am so far from being an expert, as everyone knows. I have not a single thought running through my empty, dumb head. I apologize, but I will watch the games and do my best to enjoy them and form some thoughts so that maybe we can talk about the draft when it does come around in June and bring on some experts who are more knowledgeable than us.
I filled out a bracket, Sam.
You goddamn traitor.
I did it because I set up, I should say, for the Discord for our patrons a pool that will pay them, $150 for the winner, $100 for second place, $50 for third place. If you're a patron, if you're on the Discord, we have a March Madness channel. You can sign up for that pool now. So I felt the need to pick. Did I know what I was doing at all when I was picking teams? No, I was mostly just picking based on the name of the college.
Okay, I was going to ask if you picked
I can't name 5 college players now. There is a guy named, I think, Grady Dick, and that's the only name I know because it's a funny name.
You're so predictable.
As much as I know about college ball. So, I don't know what I'll do if I win. I'll have to give the money away if I end up winning, because that would be a disaster.
Equally distributed among all patrons. Every patron
gets 50 cents. Yeah.
Everyone gets 50 cents from Mike. Voila.
All right, that's all we got. Back on Wednesday with a Patreon podcast covering the games that we missed when we're talking about
better
this one. So, yeah.
Or worse, no matter what happens.
I hope it's a happy podcast. I really hope it's a happy one. But thank you, everyone, for listening. If you'd like to join our Patreon, patreon.com/timeline. You can join our Discord, all that stuff. Check it out there. We appreciate you all, and we'll be back soon.